Welcome, fellow travelers. Welcome to my review of Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. And what a season it was. This season, as you would have seen if you watched my previous review of the first episode, starts with Burnham blasting through her wormhole in time in her super suit, her Iron Man Angel suit, crashing into her future boyfriend's ship, then plummeting from orbit at critical velocity into the ground uninjured in her super suit that she wears. Then, using the autopilot on that suit, the autopilot to autopilot back into the wormhole into time to destroy itself. The problem with Star Trek Discovery is essentially what happens in this first episode is the critical issues with this series. It is beyond science fiction. Gene Roddenberry set up Star Trek to be based in a science reality. He started it on TOS as a show to show what he thought, what he imagined, what he dreamed humanity would come to, working together, all races and creeds coming together to explore the planets of the universe, to find new life, new civilizations. And then he added to that in the Next Generation, where he went further into the science. He went into theoretical science. He tried to show what he thought was theoretically possible based on science, based on reality. Star Trek Discovery takes the foundations that Star Trek was built on and it craps on them. It doesn't care about science anymore. All it cares about is fantasy. This show is a fantasy. The fact that they don't even explain how the science works in this show shows that the writers don't understand Star Trek. How did she survive a critical velocity fall from orbit? How did she survive smacking into the side of a ship? Now, in the original Star Trek, in TNG, in Voyager, in DS9, they talk about inertial dampeners on ships, not in spacesuits. That's too big, inertial dampeners, for that. So, and if anybody who's watching this doesn't understand this, inertial dampeners are what stops people from rocketing forward from a jolt in space, and that's why we see when they're offline, people fly across the bridge, like they've done in the movies, like they've done in TNG when the Enterprise gets hit and inertial dampeners gets knocked offline. This is just one issue in this show, and it's the first episode that it shows us. The next thing they talk about is dilithium exploding across the galaxy and how dilithium powers all the devices. And we just know from Star Trek series, this is just not true. They're powered by power cells. Yes, those power cells could be charged by the warp core reaction and be replicated on the ship, like tricorders and phasers, etc. Be replicated on the ship with those power cells incorporated into them. But we know for a fact that they are charged by power cells. They use power cells. They don't have dilithium, a highly unstable substance that has been very much explained in both TOS and TNG to have a chamber, a crystal chamber that transfers the power between antimatter and matter inside of the actual chamber for the crystals. In this episode, in the first episode, she's handing over a tricorder to Booker, her future boyfriend, to trade it as a dilithium. She says, "This has got dilithium in it. Here you go." This show is just so dumb. It's dumbed down. It's not even Star Trek. I'm not even going to call it Star Trek. It's dumbed down science fiction. It doesn't make sense. And it's just the first episode I'm on. I'm only going to cover maybe 3, because 3 episodes in this show, there were 2 episodes that I think that were okay, and they were the Mirror Universe episodes. But again, they have they've just ended the Mirror Universe stuff. They've ended Starfleet. They've ended exploration of the galaxy. They've taken them 930 years into the future, because the writers don't know what to do with the source material. So they need to make up something new. They need to make up dystopian future, where Picard is as well. In Star Trek Picard, he's in dystopian future. This is not what Gene Roddenberry had in mind. It wasn't humans fighting amongst humans. The conflict for Star Trek was about humans coming in contact with other races and trying to diplomatically get them into the same thing that Starfleet was about, which was about sharing resources, about exploring the galaxy and to better themselves through science. That's the foundation of Starfleet. And what they want to do in this show is they've turned Earth into a xenophobic culture because they've been attacked for dilithium. So now they have the Earth United Alliance, or whatever the hell it's called, and Starfleet left the Earth. Starfleet left the Earth. The foundation where Starfleet began in first contact with the Vulcans, and we'll get to them in a minute, left the Earth. This is what the writers want to write about. It just goes completely against what Star Trek is about. And anybody that's a long-term Trek fan knows this. Deep down in themselves, they know that this goes against everything Star Trek's about. Now we'll get to the Vulcans, who also have left Starfleet because they think they're responsible for what this show sets up as the burn, where all the dilithium explodes at once. And so they think they're responsible. And we have Unification Part 3. And anybody that has watched Star Trek knows that Unification Part 1 and 2 are two of the best TNG episodes ever. They have Spock in them, and it's about Spock uniting Vulcan with Romulus. That's what his goal is. And in this episode, they have 3 different sects on Vulcan. Like, they a pure Romulan class, a pure Vulcan class, and a mixed class. And they are in a class-based system where they're warring with each other between factions for resources on I don't even remember what they call the new planet, because I don't care. It's Vulcan. Don't name it something else. It's Vulcan, Kurtzman. It's Vulcan. Stop trying to change everything that makes Star Trek Star Trek. So sick of this show. So sick of things like Picard just trying to change what actually is Star Trek, the core foundation of Star Trek. Go write for another random sci-fi show. If you want to make a dystopian future, go write another show somewhere else. Honestly, they invoke Spock's name in this show, and then they have the gall. They have the gall to have the Vulcan president say to Michael's mother that she was responsible for the way that Spock became. She turned Spock from a xenophobic approach to the rest of the galaxy. She was responsible for that. And yet we know that's not true. We know that Sarek marrying a human was one of the biggest things that influenced Spock. The fact that he was part human. And the secondary thing that influenced Spock was his best friend, Kirk. This is what we know as Star Trek fans, and they want to take that and warp it into some degenerate version of what Spock is. It's such a slide on who Spock is, why he came that way. And they have magic Jesus Michael coming along, and she's the one that does everything. And by the way, she's in every episode of this season except for one. And even in that one, they have to bring her in. She's the savior every time, and they're always clapping her at the end of the episode. Oh, good job, Michael! You saved us. Good job. You're the best. Good stuff. Nothing is crew based. Nothing is. They try to do some semblance of that in the last episode, where the crew tries to work together to do an objective at the end of the episode, which was to drop them out of warp, so the Orions couldn't get away with Discovery, and they try to do some sort of teamwork thing at the end, but in the end Michael has to save them again. It's not Star Trek. This is not what Star Trek is about. I'll keep coming back to that point. And so there's that episode, Unification, and then there's the episode where Michael completely disregards orders of her captain and the admiral in the show that they introduce, goes off on her own to do her own thing, and her reprimand is to lose her her number 1 officer rank. She gets demoted, essentially. And Saru thinks it's the grand idea to promote Tilly to Commander Tilly, who is an ensign, and it's literally wartime. They don't have time. How does an admiral sign off on this? Did Saru just not tell him? Like, this is the sort of writing, this is the sort of lazy writing they have, where it's not success via command rank, where you go down the rank and you promote the next person who's in line because they've earned it and they've gone through command school. She hasn't even gone through command through, and Saru does a throwaway line, or I think coming 930 years in the future, that makes you a command rank. No, it doesn't. She has no experience in commanding. She has no respect to the crew. The chief, the Stannis, whatever his rank is, he doesn't respect her at all. He literally degrades her half of this season because she's trying to find a way to make him not the center of the spore drives. And then he has his own problems because him and his partner adopt this human that has a Trill symbiote inside of her. Magically. And we go to Trill and we find out they're a xenophobic race as well. And this is the sort of Star Trek that we're getting. This is the writing. This is the caliber of writing that we're getting. It's just so infuriating to watch this franchise be trashed, turn into a dumpster fire. Season after season, it gets worse. The plot holes get bigger. Oh, and guess what caused the burn? So let's talk about the last episode, which is the third episode I want to talk about. The last episode. Because who gives a crap about the Orions? Who cares about Asara? Who cares about any of that crap? The reason the dilithium exploded is because a alien, Saru's race, I don't even care what they're called, I can't remember. Saru's race, one of them was left on a planet inside of a ship, and he somehow, like, the radiation killed the rest of his family, and he somehow found as a baby, connected to the subspace frequency of these crystals, and when he cried out, he blew them all up. Science, guys. Science. That's the writing that we get from Kurtzman and his writing team. An alien screamed, and they blew up. They didn't blow up the planet, which is full of dilithium that he's on. They just blew up everyone that's activated had a warp field. That's all they blew up. This is the caliber of writing that we have on this show. This is what they think entertains the masses. We have no character development this season. None. They bring in new characters to be token characters, caricatures of people in real life, are non-binary. They bring to be an adoptive child of the two gay people in the show, and they segregate those people off by themselves. They don't hardly ever interact with the rest of the crew. The whole show, the whole season. God knows why. And they do this whole thing. The Trill, the human with the Trill symbiote inside of her, is communicating to the past host, which was her boyfriend. They can't do that, Kurtzman. They can only do that in a ritual, and we saw it in DS9 where Dax does it, and she pulls out one individual, like previous host, and it comes through one of the caretakers for the symbiotes into one of her friends. She chooses her friends in that episode to take on. Kurtzon obviously inhabits Odo at that time, and him and Cisco get into some theatrics. We see that that's the only way they do it. And it's explained in that episode. The lore is built in that episode around the symbiote and how it works. In fact, there are many episodes in DS9, because she's a Trill, they have many episodes in DS9 where they do that. In fact, they have a lesbian kiss from Dax to her ex-wife from a previous host who was a male. This is nothing new. Having gay people in Star Trek's not new. Having pansexual people in Star Trek's not new. They did it in TNG. They did it a whole race where they were all non-binary people. This is not new. This is not original. This is not something that's groundbreaking. You know what's groundbreaking? When you have a science fiction show, which Star Trek is or was, and then you bring in stuff from the world and you make it a social commentary, and you don't smack people over the head with it. You give it a social commentary and you try to teach humans about who they are. That is what Star Trek is essentially about. That's what TOS was about. That's what TNG was about. And we get the human, that's why we have the character in each show that's trying to understand what it is to be human. We have Spock, Data, Odo, 7 of 9. We have the character that is the quintessential, I'm trying to understand what it is for a human to exist. What does it mean to be human? What is humanity? This show doesn't have that at all. This show has Michael as the main character, and all the other crewmates stand around her and clap her. That's what they do, and all they cry. That's the two things they do in this show. And Saru is so useless. He's the most Starfleet character out of all of them, besides the new admiral that gets brought in, and he's useless. He does nothing in this show except be cucked by Michael at every turn. That's all. She just goes out of her way to do whatever she wants when she wants, and then she gets promoted to captain at the end of this show for all of her insubordination. You know what happened when Kirk took the Enterprise out of space dock in Search for Spock? He got demoted from admiral to captain, and he wanted that, mind you, but he got demoted. There was a significant cost to him as and he never went above captain again. There's no consequences in this show. Nothing. It's just looped writing. Nothing happens. Nothing of consequence happens in this show. It is a mess. It is full of plot holes. It is a dumpster fire. And every season it just gets worse. I don't know how they keep renewing it. Who is watching this other than people like me who watch it, or watch it so they can review it so other people don't have to? You're welcome. I hate this show. I can't rant about it anymore. Anyway, thanks for watching my review rant of season 3 of Discovery. Don't watch this show. Please stop giving it ratings. Whoever is giving it ratings, please just stop. Let it be cancelled. We need a hard reset. This is like the Last Jedi for Star Wars. This is like core foundational, like law breaking stuff. It's just broken, and that's why they had to go 930 years into the future, because they're like, we can't abide by the law of the time, so we have to sort of make our own dystopian future where Starfleet's pretty much nothing, and none of the planets are in there anymore, and now we have to show how they rebuild it again. It's dumpster fire.